Dave Canales has never been a head coach before. One of the few things he has had likely very, very little to no experience that a head coach has to do is hiring, right? Because a coach, like, think of the things that a head coach has to do. Has to be involved in the coaching of the players. Well, a coordinator does that. A position coach does that. Have to be involved in calling timeouts. Well, a coordinator, especially a play caller, definitely contributes to that, right? Like, hey, coach, meaning the coordinator talking to the head coach. Hey, coach, we're going to need a timeout here if this play is caught in the middle of the field. Like, you're involved in those conversations. Personnel, right? Evaluating players that can fit into your system. Position coach, coordinator, both apply to that. But very, very rarely is the hiring process something they're involved in. As a position coach, for sure, coordinators might, but he was only a coordinator for 1 year. So I doubt as they were hiring him, he was turning around and hiring somebody else. And there you go. That becomes his focus now. This is one of those things that is tough to prepare for. So let's go offensive coordinator first. Okay, let's go offensive coordinator first. Who should Dave Canales be looking to hire as his offensive coordinator? Now, it's not one size fits all. The offensive coordinator for Dave Canales is not the same as the offensive coordinator for DeMeco Ryans in Houston, is not the same coordinator that you would have wanted for Frank Reich last year or Matt Rule before him or Ron Rivera before him. An offensive coordinator for an offensive play-calling head coach. I don't say this in a like downplaying their impact role, but an offensive coordinator for offensive play calling head coach is basically a trusted friend, right? It's a sounding board because they're not going to be the one calling the plays on Sundays, so they have to be. They're like a suggestion box, and somebody has to be completely and totally comfortable. You have to trust that person completely and totally that their suggestions are good, that they won't be upset if you don't use their suggestions, that they're out for the betterment of you as much as they are out for the betterment of themselves and the team. Sometimes I like a mentor in that role. Right? Like if a head coach had somebody who early in their career was kind of the system they were drawing from and now they've fallen back, meaning their mentor has, you put them in that situation, they're going to trust each other. But more likely, I want a pal. Right? I want a pal. I want a friend. I want a comrade, a compadre that you can be completely honest with. I want your best friend from high school. Right? Who, if you say like, hey, dude, I think this week I was watching film. I think we could run the double option, fake reverse, triple, naked boot, deep ball to the declared eligible third tackle. You need somebody that's going to look at you and go, it's the dumbest idea I've ever heard.
Someone that'll hold you accountable.
And go, yep, fair, needed that. Head in the clouds, bring it back in. How do we feel about a dig route? Like, how do we feel about a play action post? Much better. Reel it in.
Off tackle for 6 yards? Nailed it.
Yeah, exactly. So everything I just said for Dave Canales leads me to one name. And they just requested to interview him today. Brad Idzik.
Who?
Brad Idzik. He is the wide receivers coach for the Bucs this past year. And when we talked to Scott Reynolds yesterday of Pewter Report, he described him as Canales' best friend.
Okay.
That's all I need to hear. Because almost more so than being some really innovative mind, you just need trust and honesty there. You need comfort there, right? You don't want to feel like you have to impress that person. You don't want to feel like you have to handhold that person and micromanage and watch them. You are going to be working together a ton, and you have to trust each other. Defensive coordinator for an offensive play calling head coach is completely and totally different. This is how I describe the defensive coordinator when your head coach, Dave Canales, is the offensive play caller, which he is expected to be. He's basically the head coach of the defense. It's very siloed off, where it's like occasionally the head coach is going to walk into the defensive meeting room, but that's just to check up on things, look around, ask a question, and go back to the offensive meeting room.
That's when I played football my freshman year in college, that was our setup.
And that, I mean, usually unless you're like this true CEO head coach where you just hire coordinators and delegate. I think Dan Campbell's kind of that way, hires coordinators and then he just worries about vibe and culture. But if you're a play caller, you got to spend time on that side of the ball getting ready to call plays. So the other side becomes almost its complete and total own entity. So you need a king of that castle. They need to be able to run the defensive side of the ball and not become a problem for the head coach, and also not even need to ask the head coach a ton of questions, right? You can't be sending your quality control coach over to the offensive meeting room. Hey, go ask Dave if he wants us on third downs to pressure this week. I know the questions won't be that obvious. I'm just, stupid one off the top of the head. But you can't be nitpicking, and you can't be hey. Right, like I have a 2-year-old, almost 3-year-old son at home. He's learned the word why, which you can get lost with 9 whys in a row, right? Where are we going? To the store. Why? Well, because we need to get lunch for tomorrow. Why? Because we have to eat. Why? Oh, goodness, no more questions, right? Your defensive coordinator can't be that to your head coach. It's because he's got to worry about the offense. Right? Hey, are we spying Lamar this week? Why? Get out of here, right? So I'm looking at somebody that maybe was a head coach of the past. Pipe dream, and a caller brought this up yesterday. I don't think it's realistic, but I want to say it out loud. Just put the energy into the universe. Maybe David Tepper cut a head coach worthy check to get him as the defensive coordinator. Mike Vrabel. Not going to go down that path too aggressively because I don't think it's truly possible. I think he'd rather sit out than be a DC. But you know who is interviewing for defensive coordinator jobs? Brandon Staley.
Yeah.
Former head coach of the Chargers up until partway through this year.
Mm-hmm. He was a good defensive coordinator before he got the Chargers job.
Usually the ones that become head coaches are. So, and some guys just, we talk about it all the time. They just every good coordinator is not a good head coach. Some guys are just better at coordinator. If Staley was willing and had some kind of relationship with Canales that they could trust each other, I'd love that. But how about this for a name? Wink Martindale. I know he's never been a head coach, but he's been around enough that I don't think he's going to be the squeaky wheel that needs the grease from the head coach. He'll take that defense. He'll be aggressive. He'll blitz the heck out of it. He's been around the NFL forever. I think you want an established name.
Most recently with the New York Giants, by the way.
Most recently with the Giants, and apparently he did not vibe with Brian Daboll at all. And some of the rumors about how that relationship ended are kind of hilarious. I'm not going to go into them because the confirmations of it haven't really been up to standards, but
and a lot of words we're not allowed to repeat on air because of the FCC, things like that.
If you have a solid 15 minutes you're looking to kill, you're in line somewhere and it's going to be a while. You're at the doctor's office. Just you can Google that one on your own. But if Martindale and Canales vibe, if they kind of get along with each other, I'd love that one. Right? Martindale could literally tell Canales, hey, you deal with the offense. I'll be here with the big picture stuff, on Thursdays. But other than that, we'll silo this off. You take offense and head coaching stuff. I'll take the defensive stuff off your plate. That's what I'm thinking of for defensive coordinator. And if you're saying, what about Ejiro Evero? I handled that yesterday. You can go back and find it on the podcast.